Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Now grab a notepad, grab a pen. I want you to take notes. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you will jot down some sort of action item that you can implement in your business today, because that's what this is all about, implementation to drive your business forward. All right. I want you to picture a scene here. I'm going to tell you a little story, and I want you to sort of visualize this in your mind's eye. So you're walking down the street, you're having a pleasant walk on a nice day, it's sunny outside, the birds are chirping, and the trees are nice and green, all the leaves are out, the flowers are in full bloom, you can smell freshly cut grass, you're walking along, and you cut through this park. And what you notice is on the edge of a hill, sort of in the grass, you notice a man lying there. So you go over to investigate. You get a little bit closer, and it seems really out of place. He's wearing a suit, he's lying in the grass, and there's no one else around. And you address him. "Excuse me, sir, are you okay?" No response. You get nothing. Now you're looking, you get a little bit closer, and you can't really ascertain whether or not he's breathing. In fact, to you, it looks like he's not breathing. And what do? What should you do in this instance? Ask yourself. Maybe you've taken first aid training. Maybe you have CPR, I'm not sure, but I'm asking you what you should do in this situation. Here's what you do. You continue to ask questions 2 or 3 times. Are you okay? Maybe a little bit louder. And you might change the question in case maybe he doesn't speak English or doesn't understand, but you're getting no response 2 or 3 times. What you should do is assume that he's dead and walk away. He's dead. There's nothing you can do for him. After all, if he was still alive, he would respond. He would answer you. Of course, that is ridiculous, and I'm using this allegory to demonstrate a point regarding follow-up, customer follow-up, or following up on prospective leads in your sales journey, in your business. How do you follow up with prospective leads or prospective customers with your leads? What I've noticed is that this happens all the time when we don't get any response from a lead. When our lead is non-responsive, we assume it's a dead lead and we drop it. No more communication necessary. Of course, that is the absolute wrong thing to do. There are many reasons that someone may be non-responsive. The guy in the grass may have been not breathing but still alive. Or maybe he's in a deep sleep and he doesn't breathe so deeply that you could really tell. Maybe you're not qualified to tell. There's all sorts of things. And in the analogy, if we think of it in a sales context, people who do not respond to you when you follow up, maybe you're leaving messages, maybe you're emailing, you might have some automations going. I'm not sure how you follow up. But just because somebody is non-responsive and does not get back to you does not mean that they are no longer in the market, i.e., that is, they are not necessarily a dead lead, quote unquote, air quote, dead lead is what is often thought of. So why? Why do people do this? Why do we assume that because someone is non-responsive, they're not interested in our product? Ideally, what you want to ensure for your follow-up, for your business, for all those on your team who are responsible for follow-up. And we'll cover a little bit of the different ways to follow up. I've got at least 2 other videos on follow-up where I get into details of the purpose of following up, the importance of it, and the types of follow-up and all that kind of stuff. So visit those videos for information on that. But today I wanted to talk about why you never want to abandon a perceived dead lead. A non-responsive lead is not necessarily dead. In fact, you will find that very frequently you will be able to convert that lead. So all follow-up should only terminate in 3 possible ways. The first is that it results in a sale. That is, it's converted to revenue or sales. So if a prospective lead and you're following up and eventually they purchase, they move forward with your product or service, that's good. Now you can terminate that type of follow-up. Then you can move into, customer retention type follow-up. The second way that follow-up can terminate is if the contact information you have for the lead, for the prospective customer, is no longer valid. Well, you're not going to continue to follow up with a phone number that's out of service or doesn't belong to the same person anymore, or an email address that bounces. Of course, if the contact information is no longer valid, that's the second reason you can stop. And the third reason is that the prospective customer asks for cessation of your follow-up. If they tell you, enough's enough, I don't want to hear from you anymore, you get the, they tell you to bug off, so to speak, or whatever. All right, so those are the three scenarios. They either buy, or they no longer have valid contact information, or third, they ask you to stop following up with them. In all other scenarios, your follow-up should continue in perpetuity. Now, what it comes down to is, what is your follow-up? How does your follow-up work? What are the logistics of your follow-up? And what is the content of your follow-up? Are you pestering your customers, or are you following up in a way that adds value and they consider it good service? I have in my life right now, I was just thinking about this before I hit record, and I can think off the top of my head of at least 3 vendors of services and products that I need that have stopped following up with me. And I'm still in the market. I may very well, in fact, I'm likely, at least in 2 of the 3 situations, I'm likely to move forward with them. Now that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there are many others. So the prospects of them converting me to sale with their company, with their respective companies, is that much greater if they do keep in contact with me. Now, I will acknowledge that in 2 of the cases, they did follow up and I did not get back to them. But I'm still considering things. It wasn't that I am not interested. And it would be a mistake for you to assume that your leads are dead just because a person doesn't get back. That happens all the time. What confounds this problem is that a lot of prospective customers are not candid. They do not exercise candor, or they're not so blunt when it comes to telling someone that they're not interested. And so what happens is somebody may follow up and the person says, oh yeah, no, we're still in the market, we're thinking about it, and or they start making excuses. If they're not interested and they candidly just said that to you or to the person following up, that would be less of a confounding factor. And that's why I think a lot of sales teams and a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and managers are not really sure on when follow-up should terminate. But I'm here to tell you it only terminates in one of those 3 situations. Once again, either they buy, so they convert to a sale, or their contact information is no longer valid, or they request you to stop following up. In all other situations, you continue in perpetuity. And what I was saying earlier is, well, you have to ask yourself now, what kind of follow-up do I do? What is my follow-up process and logistics? And am I offering any value or simply pestering them? So make sure that the follow-up that you do, you create this strategy with your team, with those peoples on the front lines, your team members who know what it's like and what feedback they're getting from prospective leads and customers. And what strategy will you come up with? How frequently should you follow up? I've got some customers, or rather I have some vendors that I deal with who are doing what is known as nurturing me as a lead. They're following up with email campaigns daily, literally daily. And now you might think, well, that's too excessive, or that's excessive, I don't want that. Your strategies will be dependent on the type of business you run, the type of product you offer, and so forth. But generally speaking, when you come up with a strategy, try to link it and correlate it in some way to the temperature of the lead. That is this a really hot lead? What is the likelihood of them buying? And of course, that's an educated guess, but you have indicators. And there's tools that you can use. There are tools that you can use that will allow you to score customers. And the higher the score, considered the hotter the lead, and the lower the score, the cooler the lead. design your strategy around the likelihood of the customer converting very soon. And then what you can do is you can follow up more frequently, more urgently with those very hot leads. You gotta strike while the iron's hot. And those leads that are cooler and you think they might have cooled off and it's not, the timing's not right or whatever it is, based on your educated guess, your feedback, the data points you're using, you can then switch them to a more nurturing strategy where you're just putting them into email campaigns. And email campaigns should not strictly be about, buy. Sometimes they are articles of interest and value. You're trying to give value, and entertainment can be a part of it. And you can also offer specials when something goes on special, you can offer. So give some thought to, do you have a nurturing strategy? The other thing that I've noticed and observed is that the follow-up style and the likelihood of someone giving up has to do with whether you're using physical people, a sales team, to follow up, or automations and some sort of automated process for following up. And of course, people are subject to things like rejection, fear of rejection, and their ability to follow up may be impacted by their personal resilience, laziness, procrastination. These types of things are in the human nature, and they influence whether or not your sales team has a great deal of motivation to follow up. And then think about that. What about your alignment of interests? Does your team have sufficiently aligned objectives with yours that make them want to follow up? If that person, if they face rejection and the person, that prospective customer that they follow up with does convert to sales, are they rewarded for that? Or is it just, no, that's your job description and they try to avoid it for whatever reason? Are you measuring these types of things? Whereas automation just happens. You just build it in. If this happens, then that happens. And then you create, say, email campaigns or text messages and these types of things that just automatically go out and deliver messages and communicate value to your customer in some way, whether it's a sales special or an article or some how-to content that you've created that are of interest to your customer, or likely of interest to your customer. I think of course, for different businesses, some of you are going to rely more heavily on people follow-up, and that has to do with the relative size of the sale that you're doing. For those of you who are selling small ticket items, smaller priced items, it may not be practical to be able to pay a sales team to follow up with prospective customers, with leads. Whereas if you have a contracting business and you're likely to get a big contract in the thousands of dollars, or even in the multiple hundreds of dollars, or you're selling bigger ticket items that, higher end luxury retail items, clothing and accessories, or if you are selling automotive, new home sales, real estate, these things, of course, lend themselves much more practically to a more attentive, synchronous type of communication where you're effectively following up, getting on the phone or getting face-to-face with people. For those people running big businesses that are dealing with business to business and dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts, they wine and dine and that type of follow-up. This is all relative. What I see from most of my audience, probably a hybrid situation makes sense depending on the product or service. So you want to add some automations that will keep your customer interested or let them know that you're still interested in their business, and every now and then touch base with them. Again, it really depends on your product or service. Think about this. That's your homework today. Strategize. Ask yourself, what strategy do we have and how do we implement it? What are we doing to make sure that this happens consistently? Who's responsible for this? Are you doing the follow-up? Is somebody else on your team doing the follow-up? Do you have a group of people and a business development center that are doing follow-ups? How does this operate, and what strategy have you come up with? And give consideration. Can you add some automations? Can you do some things and create some word tracks and some good templates for emails and some designs and things like that that you can automate that go out without fail? And if you're incapable of doing these things, we can do this for you. We can help you with the automation. We can help you with the design. Reach out to Bickert Management and we will put together some numbers for you and get this happening. But you can't afford to let customers just go away. You can't afford to assume that they are dead. They still have life in them. Many of your radio silent, non-responsive prospective customers and leads are actually just waiting for some sort of condition to change, and then they are ripe for conversion. It very often is timing. It could be something financial. Give some consideration to all the possibilities. Perhaps somebody's on vacation. There's a number of reasons, and you cannot know this. You can't read minds. You don't know for sure. Do not default to this situation where you think that you're pestering somebody. In fact, it's probably considered poor service when you drop someone. You're sending, maybe inadvertently, you're sending a message that you don't really care about their business, or that you're too busy, that once they deal with you, if you can't even follow up to gain their business, maybe they are making the assumption that, oh, well, once they have my business, what kind of follow-up will I get? If I have any customer concerns or questions, are they likely to get back to me? Don't send those messages. Continue to follow up with people. Of course, you want to leave an option, and in most jurisdictions and most geographical locations, it is the law now that you're not going to spam people. People can opt out at any time of receiving, direct messages from you over the telephone or sort of electronic messages of any kind, email campaigns and texts and that kind of thing. So give people the option to opt out very easily and respect that. Do not contact someone who doesn't want to be contacted. But other than that, you need to assume that they are still interested. They reached out to you in the first place. They're probably still interested. Continue to nurture them and put some sort of campaign in place. Nurturing is what it's all about now. Now, if you don't have a customer relationship management tool, a piece of software, a CRM, to manage this for you, well, you're dead in the water. I don't really think, unless you have a very small business, or maybe you have, in terms of revenue, a large business, but you have very few customers, you can't manage this manually. It would be great for you to jot it down as your homework assignment. Oh, I'll put up a strategy for nurturing. And then I want to set up a few automations. I'm going to design a few emails and send out a campaign. It'll die automatically. Speaking of automations, it'll automatically terminate over time, or it won't be very effective without a proper, powerful CRM tool. So again, reach out to us. We represent the very best CRM in the world. We can set this up for you very inexpensively. Give some thought to this. Remember that non-responsive radio silent lead is not dead. They still have life within them. They still have breath until you can confirm, until the coroner says this is dead. I don't mean to be morbid with this analogy, but you get the idea. So I think that's where I want to leave it today. This came up because recently I noticed this. I observed this, that many leads are going we're not following up properly with leads. They are being neglected. And I'm being neglected as a prospective customer for some businesses as well. Think about it. Always put yourself in the shoes of the customer and make sure you're respectful to them, add value, nurture. I think that's where I want to leave it today. I don't want to go on too long about this. I want to hear from you though, and let me know whether or not you agree with this. What have you done? What have you found is best? What reasons should you continue? Is there a fourth reason besides the three I listed that you should stop following up with somebody? Leave a comment that we can all learn from, because we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.